Hi everybody, this is Jen from Frugal Upstate. I'm going to go ahead and hit some of the questions. Leslie asks 2 questions and she says, number 1, do you grow your garden from seed or buy started seed, and how large is your garden bed? And then in parentheses she said, well, I guess that's 2 questions. I grow most stuff from seed. I do buy some inexpensive starts from a place near us. There's a small farm stand. Well, actually, it's a very large farm stand. They have animals and everything. But they sell all sorts of plants and starts and herbs and stuff. We have a short growing season because we can't plant until after, into June most of the time. And a lot of times we get frosts in mid-September. This year, it waited until October, but whatever. So there are certain things that just you don't have a lot of time for. And there are a few things that I just buy. Herbs that are hard to start seeds on your own and things like that. However, this year was my first year where I did most of my starts myself. There's certain things you just plant directly in the garden. Root crops, you don't start carrots ahead of time. You disturb the roots, it doesn't like it. Beans don't like to be disturbed and started ahead of time. There are certain things, corn. There are a lot of things that it's just better to plant directly in the ground. But this year I did start my own. I started things like tatsoi and cabbage and Brussels sprouts myself. I also brought some Brussels sprouts starts from the stand. I did all my own tomato starts. I started marigolds from seed. I did all these things, and I actually had a 4-tier, it's like a greenhouse thing. It's like a plastic covered set of shelves down in the basement, and it was completely packed full of seedlings by the time they were like this big. And in the spring, I was hauling just boxes and boxes of seedlings outside every day onto the yard so they could get sun, and then inside at night so they didn't get frosted on. It was a lot of effort, but I started most from seed. A lot of it was organic seed. A lot of it was open pollination, which means they're seeds that breed true. So if I save the seeds from the plant that I planted, I can plant it and get the exact same seed. Other things are hybrids, and if you plant them, they don't do that, because you cross 2 parents to get just 1 generation of this perfect plant, and then its seeds are something sort of different. So you need to know if you're going to save your own seed what's going on. That's, extra advice. My garden bed, I actually had 5 different gardens this year. My main garden bed was probably 20 feet by 10 feet in the back. It's partially shaded. And then there was another one that was about 6 by 9 that my husband put in for me next to the barn, or the shed. And then I planted in hay bales along the one fence line. I had about 15 hay bales, and I planted tomato plants in those, and a butternut squash that went nuts. Down at my mother-in-law's, there was a large patch, but because I wasn't down there to take care of it and everything, there were really about 4 squash plants that were down there. And then I actually started a plot over at my mom's house that my brother is now living in, because he wasn't going to be moving in from across the country until later in the gardening season. So I had to do that to get it going. So I've got quite a few garden beds spread all over the place. I've also got planters right outside the back door that are my herb garden. There are a few things in the ground. The chives and the lovage are in the ground, but in planters I planted mint, I planted lemon balm, I had parsley, I had sage, I had rosemary. I did not have time, so I don't have the whole song. What else? Oregano. I tried some stevia, but that didn't really work out well. I tried a couple tomato plants in tubs. So I sort of am experimenting and put things everywhere. I also had extra chard that sprouted, and I sort of dug that up and planted it. So I had chard in the front flower bed and, chard in the corner. And my one friend used to giggle when she would come by to visit because I had chard sort of growing everywhere. But it's a pretty plant. So Leslie's second question is, do your kids ever complain about your frugality? That also ties into a question that I had on Facebook from Beth Ann. Ruthie. Ruthie said, are your kids ever embarrassed by mom's frugality? How do you teach them that it's a choice you make for a better life and not to make them anxious about family finances? So those two kind of going together. Honestly, I've never had the kids complain about our frugal lifestyle. I think mostly because from the outside it doesn't appear very frugal. They have a lot of stuff. We are solidly middle class. And I think my frugality helps keep us there and helps us have some savings and to do a lot of things that actually might look more upper middle class, like have motorcycles and antique cars and a very nice, large, old Victorian house that we moved into because we wanted the more space and I loved the house, things like that. So they haven't complained. They're 8 and 10, and they haven't really complained. What I believe with children, and this is just my personal opinion, if you disagree with me, feel free, but be respectful, please, is that the more often you have small conversations about something as opposed to big lectures over time with your children, sort of the more it sinks in. I'm an over-explainer, in case you can't tell. So I explain a lot of things to my kids. I also, maybe I'm conceited, but I think I'm very good at explaining things to my kids in a way that they can understand by drawing analogies to things that they understand from their life. So I spend a lot of time talking to them about, from the time they were fairly young, about choices. When they were extremely small, we would go to the little variety store here in town. It's kind of a 5 and dime. And they had little, cookie jars full of candy, penny candy. Now it's up to 2 cents, but it was actually penny candy. And I would let them each buy 10 cents worth of candy. And if they picked out 11 cents worth of candy, I would tell them no and make them put it back. And that might have looked a little strange to the lady behind the counter who thought, geez, this woman can't come off of 21 cents instead of 20 cents. But what I wanted to teach them very, very young was that you can only spend the money you have. If I only give you 10 cents, you only have 10 cents to spend. You cannot pick out 11 cents worth of stuff. And I've built on that over time. We spend time talking about the fact when it's not at the purchase point, when it's not in the store and they're begging for something and they can't have it. We talk sometimes about the fact that, we make choices. Everybody makes different choices because you don't want them going to school and ragging on somebody else's choices or misrepeating something and make it sound like I'm attacking other people's choices. Everybody makes their own choices. But I'll point out things like, Mama and Papa don't, take you out to dinner all the time, or we don't buy you new clothes all the time, but, we took a very nice vacation to Disney World, or, you get this. And we talk about the fact that it's all choices. We have to make decisions of where we want to spend money. There's only so much money each family has, and we make our choices about where that's going to go. And that, our choice is that we choose not to spend our money on, eating out as much or buying prepackaged food or, video games as much. We have video games, but, I'm just trying to think of a good example, that we choose not to have those so we can have other things. And, we talk about, well, what if I spent all this money and then Christmas came and Mama and Papa didn't have as much money to buy your Christmas presents? Would you like that? So I try to put it in terms they can understand. We've talked about it over time. As my daughter has gotten older and she's very into fashion, I try to take time to point out things. I buy our clothes at the thrift store. A lot of them. Not that I don't ever buy anything in the store, but I buy a lot of her stuff at the thrift store, and I pick out stuff that I think she will like. She's got her own style, and I pick out things that I think are kind of trendy and cool. And she says to me that she loves her clothes, and she thinks she has a closet full of cool clothes. And then every once in a while, we will go someplace like the mall. I do not normally go to the mall. I find, side note, if I don't go to the mall, I'm happy with what I have. When I go to the mall and start looking at other stuff, all of a sudden I want more things. It's amazing. But I will take her to the mall or someplace, and I will point out, look, this shirt costs $30. The shirt that you're wearing that I bought you at the thrift store costs $3. Wouldn't you rather be able to buy 10 shirts than one shirt, And I think because they don't feel like they're missing out on anything, they do get to do a lot of things, that they are accepting of that. And like I said, it's something we talk about, and I take pains to tell them, because as Ruthie said, I don't want them anxious. Mama and Papa have plenty of money for all the things we need and for a lot of the things we want. That's how I've always put it. We have the money for the things we need and for a lot of the things we want. We just think that it's important to make choices so that we can save for retirement, so that we can save for college, so that we can have things that we want later, and so that we aren't spending money on things that we don't think are important. So that's the answer. And maybe later I'll grab one of the kids when they get home from school and we'll do a separate little video and I'll ask them their opinion without prepping them and just see what they say. If you guys enjoyed this, make comments, leave more questions, and I'll do it more often. It's kind of fun. So take care. And if you're just watching this on YouTube and you haven't been by my blog, make sure you stop by Frugal Upstate, www.frugalupstate.com. It's Frugal Upstate because I live in upstate New York rather than downstate being the city. And, come on by, share your thoughts, ask questions, and start learning about how to live a frugal life.